Hey, what's up, Masters? Welcome to another episode of Path to Mastery podcast. Today we are with Jonas. John, what is up, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, brother. I'm doing awesome, man. And I'm excited to have this conversation around virtual assistants. And we've been using VAs for a while, and I know you have a company that helps people find and hire the right VAs. So I appreciate having you here today.
Yeah, man. Let's talk about it.
Awesome. So, well, first off, how did you get started? You may not know this about me, but I started using VAs probably about 15 years ago in my real estate business. So I've been at it for a while with VAs, and where I think a lot of people just probably in the last couple of years really getting more mainstream, right?
Yeah.
How did you get started with VAs?
Yeah. So I hired my first person in 2005, and my first person in the Philippines in 2005. And
Mm,
before that, I had tried some other things. It was always just a disaster for me. Like I tried Elance. It's now Upwork, but Elance at the time,
yeah,
and
that's
it
right.
just, it just became like a burden to me where it was contract work and the person's job was to do one thing, but there was a whole process involved in the work, and the actual work was a process, and they only did one tiny piece of that process. And so either I went and hired like four more people, or the work fell on me, which is what it felt at the time. It fell on me. It was just this giant burden, and that was a disaster.
Mm,
So I just happened upon some really good advice from someone the next year, about a year later, and he said, when you're ready to start outsourcing some of this stuff, make sure you go to the Philippines with it. And I was like, really? Like, what? And he said, yeah, because in India, at the time everybody was going to India. I mean, this is
mm,
2004, 2005. Everybody's going to India. And he said, yeah, in India, when you say something and they say yes, that means yes, I heard something come out of your mouth. It doesn't mean yes, I understood what you said. And I was like, what? Like, really? That's weird, right? But it also kind of gave me hope, where like maybe there would be a different experience than what I had already experienced. And it took me a couple months. He gave me a reference to where I could hire someone full time from an agency, and I didn't think I didn't think I could keep someone busy full time. I didn't think I could afford someone full time. I didn't know if they could actually do good work. And after a couple months of putting it off, I was finally like, dude, it doesn't matter. I can't keep doing what I'm doing. I'm working too much. I need help. I have to figure something out. So I took the leap, had this agency hire someone for me. It was the most liberating experience of my life. His full-time job was to do anything I asked him to do. And he was willing to learn, he was willing to think, and he was willing to be present and show up every day, and he was full-time working for me, and that completely changed my life. So
mm.
that's how I got started.
Well, that's all. That's amazing. Similar. I got started, years ago, and I think one of the challenges, and I still experience the challenges. What you just said at the end is you said that he was able to think, and that's always been. And maybe it's me, maybe I'm not hiring the right people, but I can find people that can do tasks
Yeah.
all day, but finding people that can think has been challenging. You know,
So so can I change something here in this conversation?
Of course, that's why we're here, man.
I don't like the word VA. I don't like
Okay.
virtual assistant.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, what should we call them?
So years ago, I realized people are like, "Oh, dude, I need help, but I don't want a secretary. I don't want just a data entry person, right? Like someone who
Mm,
can only do data entry. That's the problem, is they don't think."
sure.
And I was like, "Dude, that's not who I'm hiring. That's not who I'm finding. That's not who I'm hiring, and that's not who you want. What you want is someone who's virtual. They're working online. They're willing to think. They're willing to be loyal and honest and hardworking and intelligent and talented, which is all of who I'm finding, partly because of the culture of the Philippines.
Sure.
And they're a specialist. Like, they're really good at it. So I started calling them online Filipino specialists, OFS, because they're not, this isn't a secretary. It's not a do this task and just follow the instructions and don't do anything else. That's not who these people are. They are humans. They want to contribute. They have brains. Their culture allows them to contribute. That's one of the big problems with the India-Pakistan culture is their culture doesn't allow them to do more or less according to need, because of some cultural things, where the Philippines does allow it, and they want to contribute and they want a career. They don't want a task. They want something to help your business progress. And so that's when you talk about like, oh, you're having a hard time finding people. Maybe the place you're looking is wrong. Maybe the process is wrong.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have on my team, I have programmers, I have designers. Like I have a user interface designer who thinks through like, what are people going to experience when they see this? Or I have a video editor who follows the latest trends on TikTok and edits our videos accordingly because that's the current editing style. Or I have someone that writes my personal newsletter in my voice. Like it goes to 100,000 people 3 times a week. And,
I
like,
love that.
yeah.
So now you train these people is what I'm guessing, right? Did you hired them and trained them to do this?
Well, so like the designers, no, I didn't train anything. Those are technical skills. The programmers that I have, I didn't train anything. The system admin people that I have, I didn't train any of that. I didn't train the HR person, but like someone writing my personal newsletter, I mean, she's a really good writer, and we worked together on like style for a long time. And she's worked for me since 2010, 2009. Which is one of the amazing things about the Philippines. Like that first person I hired in 2005 still works for me today. They're just super loyal and they'll stick with you as long as you're willing to treat them well and give them a job. And so you can afford to train people, where like if you're hiring off Fiverr, you can't afford to train because Fiverr's whole premise is based around turnaround. Like they have to get a job done and get feedback so that they can become a higher paid provider, so that they can get more jobs and get feedback and become a higher paid provider, so they can become a premium provider, right? Like that's the whole premise of Fiverr and Upwork is turnover, basically, which is like such a killer to small business.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you on the loyal, honest, hardworking. My VAs are from Philippines, and I will 100% agree with you on that. I just, maybe my experience, probably my training, I'll take responsibility. I have not found, I mean, trust me, I've got somebody that can build sales funnels for us, and I've got someone else that's good with editing, but it's still like, I don't know, again, maybe it's me. As I'm talking, I'm thinking maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not giving them the ability to like, I ask them, like, here's an example. And this is, so we do a newsletter, and, we had somebody on the podcast that was, not attractive. Right. Like, and so she puts the cover together, and, we use a photo of the person. So we send it out to, a couple thousand people. And I'm like, well, why would you send this photo out? And she's like, well, cause you told me I didn't have to. So we went from her confirming every email before it goes out to like, you don't have to confirm everything with me. So, okay, now you don't have to confirm, but now, so the opposite side of it, I'm like, well, did you think that was an attraction? She's like, no, not at all. I'm like, okay, then why'd you send it?
Okay.
No real answer besides, well, you told me I didn't have to confirm with you anymore. So now you're in a place like, okay, so I have somebody that can't think through something. And again, it's me. I'll take responsibility for it. But do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's frustrating.
Yeah. No, dude. I had the exact same thing happen. So I recorded a podcast episode, and I sent it to my team, and there's like 4 people that touch this, right? And they published the most horrendous video. It was like incoherent. The editing of it was horrendous. The whole thing was terrible. And luckily, I don't usually see them. Luckily, I saw that one like 2 days later and freaked out. I was like, what happened here? Oh, well, that's not my responsibility. That's their, I didn't know, all kinds of stuff, right? So I started digging into this, like what causes this in the Philippines? What causes poor work? Or we ended up calling it mindless work in the Philippines, which is exactly what you have.
Term. Yeah.
Mindless work. We came up with like 9 different things. I wrote a whole series about it. I did a podcast series about it and wrote a whole series about it. And there's some definite things you can do in the Philippines to improve that. One would be give them a title and responsibility. Like people in the US, well, for me, job titles are not very important, right? Like we don't talk about our titles very often. In the Philippines, it's a big deal. So they want a title and then they want a role. So for me, part of that conversation was, okay, your role is now, whatever it was for this person. And you're responsible for making sure that we produce really, really good content in this situation, right? Because if we publish this thing and it sucks, well, that looks bad on me. Like that just sucks for me. And it looks bad on me. It looks bad on you because you did the work and people know that you did the work, right? And then it looks bad on the Philippines and it brings fewer employers in, right? So that was my conversation with them. Like this reflects bad on me. And work changed. Work changed when I did that.
That's a great tip. That's a really good tip. Like director of operations or something, as opposed to just David Hill admin.
Yeah.
Which is not something I thought of. But all right. So what do you see as why Philippines for starters? Why I mean, well, you already talked about it, but like we've tried. We used somebody in Mexico for cold calling. It seems like they were a little bit more aggressive. So that typically actually didn't even work better anyway. It's funny. Here I am with all these VAs and I might as well just go hire someone. You know what I need? Actually, it's funny. Like here I am venting to you in the middle of a podcast, but I really just need to hire somebody to put between myself and all these VAs. I think that's where I'm at right now.
Or maybe you need to do a better job of hiring better people.
Yeah, that could be it.
So like, I mean, in the Philippines, there's still people. A lot of people get the idea when I talk about this, they get the idea that these are magic humans. Like they can do anything, right? No, that's not how it is. Like you want someone that's more aggressive as a cold caller. That's cool. You got to hire a high D, right? From the disc profile. So I use disc profiles when I hire someone. Like if I'm hiring someone to be an admin assistant, I want someone who's high S, high C. Like they're going to be dedicated. They're going to pay attention to the details. They're going to be there every day. They're going to be on time, whatever, right? That's what I want. If I want someone that's going to be closing sales, dude, that's a high D.
Yeah.
Right. That's high S, high C. That doesn't matter there, right? So the difference in the Philippines, there's this set of cultural things that I already talked about, that I already mentioned, but you can find those cultural things in other cultures, but the combination of them is really, really hard to find. And I've never found it where once you hire them, they look up to you. They want to keep you happy. They want to keep their job. They're making more than most people they know are making. The loyalty is such a big deal. They're honest generally. Like it's just such a big deal to go. Most people have a better experience in the Philippines than they do elsewhere. And then English is a government mandated primary language in the Philippines. And culturally, it's just a necessity from the Philippines because they have so many languages. Like you come from one island to another, you can't talk to the people. You don't understand them. Well, so the only way to fix that is to pick a single central language that everybody speaks, and that's English. They're very, very westernized. Like they watch American TV and American movies. They love the NBA. They watch it in English. Like it's billboards are often in English in the Philippines. It's so interesting. So there's just this cultural uniqueness about it that makes it different. That when I started, I had no idea. I just got someone gave me a good tip. Like go to the Philippines. Like okay. So
here's what just occurred to me as I'm doing this interview. I have to then send this now to my VAs to edit it after I've just been talking about them. So I do have to say, again, super loyal, hardworking. I have to take responsibility myself. Maybe it's our training, it's it's not setting the right expectations. Maybe I'm getting frustrated and then I'm creating friction myself. So I do have to look at myself as a leader, and so I want to acknowledge the people, especially Sam, who's been with me for 2 years and has helped me tremendously, but what would you say? I mean, so going back to your process, right? What's different about using your service as opposed to Fiverr or Upwork or one of the others? Because you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. So after I had used Elance back, and I've used Upwork a number of times over the years. Right now, I can't use Upwork because they did something to my account or something. I don't know. It's been years since I've used it, but so when I was using the agency, they said to me, "Do you want a webmaster or a programmer?" And I was like, "Dude, I want a content writer." They said, "Do you want a webmaster or a programmer?" Because that's all they would do. And I was like, I'll take a webmaster, which all they were pulling was a warm body off the street anyway. They weren't like actively out finding people because there wasn't a good way to find people at the time. Even in the Philippines, it was still like post a classified ad. And I just thought, man, if there was a way for me to recruit on my own, then I could I could interview people on my own and find someone that had the skills that I want. And I think I could build that kind of like monster.com was at the time, which is like indeed.com today, where we built a job board. I went back to the agency and said, "Hey, I want a programmer." And so I hired a programmer through the agency and we started building onlinejobs.ph, which is today it has like over 2 million Filipino profiles in it. And we're not in the middle of it. We don't find people for you. We don't vet them. We don't help you. We just provide you the means of recruiting someone on your own. So you can post a job, they will apply to your job, or you can go on and search the profiles and look and see what skills people have and contact them directly and see if they're interested in working or if they're available to work. One of the great things about the Philippines is they're super loyal. So like if you contact someone, you find like the one person that you want, they already have a job, they're probably not going to respond to you because they already have a job, which is so great once you've hired them, because then they're going to stick with you. So onlinejobs.ph, it's a job board. It's a way for you to connect with them. And then there's no markup. There's no fee. There's no, like, they're asking to make $600 per month for full-time work, and you're going to pay them $600 per month. We're not taking a cut of that. We're not you pay to access the database. That's where we make our money. And then everything you pay them goes straight to them and feeds their family.
That's cool. So once you pay to access the database, is it for a certain amount of time, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's monthly. So it's $70, $69 for 1 month. And you can contact, I mean, you can't contact as many people as you want. We have limits, but the limits are, you can't hire. I mean, you can contact more people than you need to.
And what's the average rate? I know I pay my VAs probably better than the average, but what would you say is the average rate on?
Yeah, so there isn't really an average rate, because like for a data entry person, it's different than for a programmer. But for like a beginner, no experienced person, full-time is about $400 per month. And you can find people for less than that. I say 400 because it's pretty basic, right? We're on the upper end. You have like a really good Facebook ads person at like $2,000 a month, or like a really good copywriter, or a good, like the best programmer at like $2,000 a month. But then like an average person, like $700 a month, $600 a month, $800 a month for someone you can find, depending on where they are in the Philippines, rates are different, but like a really good video editor at $750, or a really experienced transaction processor for real estate at like, $700 a month for full-time work. And you can also hire them part-time. You could hire them hourly. You can do whatever, or like sales cold calling people, they probably demand more, because if they're really good at it, they know, like,
yeah.
No, I can find a job that's going to pay me commission, which most Filipinos do
Worth
not
more.
like commission.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you find someone that's good on the phones, which is hard, especially out of the Philippines, which is why we were using Mexico. Even I mean, that's just a tough role in itself. So what are some of the challenges then? What are some of the biggest challenges when it comes to hiring VAs, in your opinion?
Well, so a couple things. Let's talk about hiring first, like the actual hiring process. Finding someone great. Are you still there? Did I lose you?
Yeah, I'm here, man.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the actual hiring process, the biggest challenges that I see are expectations. So like people have these crazy expectations of this magical human that can do everything, right? So that's not a thing, right?
Mm.
Um, and then finding the right person, people, it's so daunting and so scary until you've done it. And I'll cover this really quickly, but I lay this out in detail at onevaoa.com. But how I find people quickly, and this works almost every time to find someone great, is I, number one, go on to onlinejobs.ph and search for the skill that I'm looking for. I'm going to look at 10 to 20 profiles just to get an idea of how much are people asking for in this thing? Like, what's the range? What's a super high expert and what's a low, and what's a mid? And then I'm also seeing what are the skills that are associated with this skill that I'm looking for? Like, what other things do people know? Can I find this thing, right? Then I'm going to post a job. I'm going to let people respond to my job. I may contact a few of the people that I looked at just to add them to the pool, potentially see if they respond. And then once I get applications from people, responses from people that I contacted, I start interviewing through email. Everybody always wants to jump straight to a video interview. It's the wrong thing to do. People in the Philippines don't want to do a video interview. They're scared of you, and this is one of the big issues that people think. I don't know if I can trust this person, right? Like, how could I trust this person with my whatever? How do I protect myself, right? Well, they feel the same way on the other side, but their feeling is stronger than yours is. They don't trust you even more than you don't trust them.
Mm.
So you have to do things to gain their trust. And in the interview process, part of that is just communicating with them so that they start to feel like, oh, you're legitimate and real. Filipinos are really scared about getting scammed. It's like baked into them. They get it hammered into them. Don't get scammed. Don't get scammed. And they do get scammed by employers. And so you have to do things to gain their trust. And that's a really big deal. So once you've interviewed people through email, I will ask 2, 3, 4 questions across 4, 5, 10 emails, which is so much more time efficient than getting on a video interview with 3 people. And what I find is scammers don't want to go through this process. Bad people just don't want to go through this process. They drop themselves out, or people realize, oh, I don't have the skills for this like I thought I did, and they drop themselves out. Or I will drop people out of the recruiting process because you don't have the skills, or I don't like getting an email from you, or whatever it is. And I find that if I do this a bunch of times, it usually whittles its way down to finding someone really, really great. And then I'll have them do a test task. At this point, if you want to do a video interview, if that's your thing, then now's the time to do it, now that you've established some trust with them. So that's how I find great people. And there's a couple things that go into this that most people don't think about, and I didn't think about for years as I developed this. But when I start working with someone, I'm not working with them face to face very often. Like, I'm not getting on a video call with them every day, for sure. And so why am I interviewing them differently than I'm going to work with them, where it's a virtual relationship? I'm going to work with them through email or through a project management system or through chat. Why get on a video call when that's not going to be part of our working relationship? And then I can also I get to see their attention to detail. Like, if I ask them 4 questions, they only answer 3 of them. Well, then I'm going to give them 4 tasks. They're only going to do 3 of them. That sucks. Yeah. Or I get to see how quickly they respond, because if it takes you 3 days to respond during an interview, well, it's probably going to take you 3 days to respond after I hire you. And I've done this a couple of times, and it sucks. It doesn't work for me. So it's just a really efficient and easy way to weed out the bad and find the really, really good. Then so your question was, what are the difficulties? That's the hiring process, and that's what I cover at One VA Away: how to find someone amazing, right? Once you started working with people, the real key is to gain their trust. You just have to do things to gain their trust, and part of that is training. They want training, regardless of if they're an expert or not. It's like, again, it's part of their culture. They want a role, they want a title, they want you to trust them, and that takes some back and forth. It takes some time. It takes some getting to know each other, like a real human in your office. Like it's a person. The one thing that the biggest challenge that most people have is someone disappearing. A Filipino disappears.
Yep.
When that happens, it's almost always because they got stuck on something. They didn't know what to do. They don't want to lose face. And they would rather walk away than confront you about it. They're very non-confrontational. So if someone disappears, something is wrong. And it's not them. It's not that they're lazy. It's not they didn't want the job. It's not that they want the job. Like, finding a job in the Philippines is hard. So if someone disappears, you have to approach them and say, hey, I think you're stuck on something. What did I do? What are you stuck on? What problem do you have? What have I done to make your job not correct? Like, you need to approach it with what did I do wrong? Which that's obviously your attitude towards this, which is so great. What did I do wrong? And you'll just solve so many things. And they'll become rock stars. As soon as they realize you care about them, they will become rock stars. When they realize that you're not going to embarrass them, that they're not going to lose face.
You gave me some awesome tips today, man. I love it. And it's funny because I'm thinking back to my process with trying to hire these people to make phone calls for us. And the agency we were using, they would always get us on a Zoom. And I've been on the phones 35 years. I'm good on the phones. And they put me in front of somebody and I'd say, okay, let's do this. And then the person would be all nervous and then I'd be like, I don't know about this. But it just occurred to me, why are we even on a Zoom call? Right? Like, think about it. Like, it never even clicked. Like, just put us on a phone call. Let's hear what you can do on the phones, because you're not going to be Zoom calling people. You're going to be phone, right?
Yeah. And talking with your boss is different than talking with a client.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you're scared. They're feeling they're scared of their boss.
But even adding the video is such a different dynamic, right?
Why are we interviewing that way? Like, you're never going to work that way.
Yeah. No, you gave some awesome tips, man. I love it. And then the title too is a great one as well. And just good stuff, man. Appreciate that. So we're on Clubhouse. We got about 25 people here. Does anybody have a question? We take a couple questions, John, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm happy to answer questions.
Anybody have a question for John, or if you want, just raise your hand. You can come up and ask a question.
So while you're waiting for these questions, let me answer some questions that people have. I know questions. They are an independent contractor. There's no way for you to make them an employee. It doesn't matter what you do. The Philippines government will not allow you to classify them as an employee unless you have a physical presence in the Philippines with a legal entity. If you do not, they are a contractor, period. So you can pay them a full-time salary. You can give them all kinds of benefits of whatever you want. You can mandate their hours. You can mandate their equipment. You can do all the things that would make someone an employee in the U.S. They are still they are still an independent contractor.
Which is better, right? I mean,
so much better, dude. This is like all of the benefits of an employee with none of the problems of the employee, right? So for taxes, they are a line item under subcontractors on the other deduction statement. That's it. There's nothing else. So, depending on your tax bracket, like for me, they are a 37.9 or whatever that high tax bracket is, % deduction off of our taxes, right? Like that, they are That's it, that period. And that's all there is. So how do you pay people? So you can pay people through PayPal if you want. That's the worst way to pay people, but you could use wise.com. At onlinejobs.ph, we have something
Wise.
built in called Easy Pay. It's super easy to pay. Everything you send them, they're going to get, which is a really big deal. How do you protect your sensitive information? So number one, having someone in the Philippines is like less. Are these questions that people are asking? That's why you're smiling.
No, I just like that you have all the questions figured out ahead of time. It's
Dude, I've
like,
been asked these questions so many times.
but yeah, nobody's asked anything, so it's working out well.
Okay, sweet. So to protect your sensitive information, number one, like people in the Philippines, the government is fully on board with having virtual work. They want employers overseas hiring virtual workers in the Philippines. So theft laws in the Philippines are super, super strict. Punishments for digital theft are double what normal theft is. The government is fully on board with this. They do not want people stealing. They want a squeaky clean reputation for the Philippines. And I've seen hundreds of thousands of employers hire people in the Philippines. I've seen very, very, very few cases of people stealing stuff. And almost every time when I do, it's because the employer tried to get them to do work and not pay them for their work. And they're trying to get paid. So beyond that, you can use LastPass and like share passwords. So you have to give them access to something, but you don't want to give them your password. Have them install LastPass. You install LastPass, save your password in LastPass and share that password with them. LastPass will share it with them, but will not show them the password. So it'll fill it onto the website, but they don't ever get to see it. And then you could revoke that access anytime you want. So if you end up letting them go, you just revoke all the access from them. All of their passwords are gone instantly. They can't log into them anymore, right?
Yeah.
Credit cards, dude. Visa is so unbelievably forgiving. If they were to spend some money on your credit card, you could just say, hey, this is an unauthorized charge. Done. You get your money back. It's so simple. So like my guy, lots of people in the Philippines have my credit card because it just makes my life easier. They can pay for stuff. I don't really care. I've never had someone steal anything. If I did, I'd just call the bank and say, hey, this was unauthorized. And they'd say, okay, well, that's done. Right.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it, and I feel good. I mean, we use LastPass. What about we use Trello for tasks? Is that what you would recommend as
Great.
well?
So I use Basecamp, but I use Basecamp because I've been using it since like 2004, and it just fits really well with my brain. I love that it lets everybody work however they want to work. Like my business partner never, ever logs into Basecamp. He only uses email, and Basecamp is fully functional with email. Where I only work in the app. I love Basecamp, but Trello is so great, or Asana, or there's a bunch of different project management systems that you could use.
Okay, cool. And Wise, I love Wise for payment. It's
so
ridiculously easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great process, man. So I don't know. I feel a little bit better. I just I got to, yeah, I know for me, I'm at a place now where I probably need to hire somebody between myself and the VAs. Just that's where I'm at, where where I need to, for me. And I think, some people are probably there because now I'm impatient. You know what I mean? I want to just focus on my highest and best use of time, not, managing the VA. So I think that's probably where I'm at, which is creating a lot of my own frustration. And I just need to hire that person. I'm wondering, do you think there could be a VA that could be the in-between person? Or do you think do they have high level VAs like that?
Yes. So you can definitely hire someone that's high level like that. Just make sure that you have defined things really well. What I often find is in someone in the Philippines who's put as an intermediary layer, they tend to be really, really strict, not very kind. They're very concerned about you and them, and they become very authoritarian, which I don't like. Maybe you don't mind or whatever, but just it's a harder thing to fill. I mean, it's a harder thing to fill in the US, right?
Yeah.
It's doable. So we have 40 people that work for us full time. I deal with about 15 of them. directly. So yes, you can, and a bunch of them have people that work under them. Like their roles got big enough that they needed help, and so I was like, great, hire someone else, or I'll hire someone and they'll report to you. But I still work with those people often. So yes, you can do it. I would focus on having better people in the first place. Unless you have just too many people, I would focus on having, like, fixing the problems with
Yeah.
the ones you have and hire better people to do
Yeah.
things.
I'd say that I'd say that they're maybe I'd say they're good at certain things. And if I could just say, okay, focus on just those things, maybe I'm giving too many other things that are outside of their strengths you know what I mean?
Yeah, and maybe just them, maybe your guys listening to this are going to be like, oh, well, I didn't realize that he wanted me to be better. I'll be better.
Well, she certainly realizes, but she's great, and she's been with me a while, and she's helped me out tremendously in a lot of areas. And like anything, nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I am. Anyway, it's I appreciate you, and we are my friend Armando's up here. I don't know if you have any questions, Armando, before we wrap it up. Did you have a question? I know you just came up.
Hey, howdy. Yeah, it's Armando Realtor in Houston, Texas. Yeah, the main thing I have an issue with my VA, and I probably need to sit down and train, is just the task that I want her to do. And I think it's just a training issue. However, I kind of find myself repeating a lot of the things that, that I give her, like just like the ads that I have her create and things of that nature. And it's just like I have to remind her over and over. I don't know if if I have to go back and train her, and then we have to like sit down, or what does the training look like on your side as far as seeing like what specific tasks need to get done. And I guess y'all have, when you bring somebody on board, or if y'all implement something in your business.
Dude, such a good question, dude. So I have two things for that. Number one, I had two things and my mind just went blank. Hold on a second. I'm gonna come up with this. So okay, number one, how I do my training, I do all of my training through Snagit. And it's like Loom, but I use Snagit. I like it better. So I can record video, I can take a screenshot, whatever. I just record video on my screen, my mouse, my voice, and I'm just talking through the whole process, and I can explain everything. And then when they get that video, they can watch it over and over and over again if they want to, right? And what I find is I usually need to do, depending on what the task is, like for creative tasks, I'm going to have to do this 3, 4, 5, 10 times, because I have all these assumptions about how this should be done or what to do that they don't have. And I don't know that they don't have those things, right? So that's one of the two things. The second thing is ask. And what I found is when something is going wrong and I have to explain the same thing over and over again, and I'm getting frustrated with it, usually if I ask them, hey, I've had to explain this 4 times now, and we're still not getting it right. Where's the disconnect here? Like, what am I asking you to do that you don't understand? And usually what I find is they say, well, this just doesn't make sense, or I don't have this piece, and I'll go back and look at my video and be like, oh yeah, that was horrible. That was such a terrible explanation of what I want. And I did that over and over and over again. So asking them like, hey, what's going on here? Why can't we get this right? Why do I have to keep, because they know that you've had to explain it. Ask them a question. Why? What's going on here?
Yeah, thanks, Armando. Great question, brother. And also, I'll just throw in, also you need to make sure you hire the right person, right? I mean, obviously that's part of it as well. You want to hire somebody that actually knows that and is wired to be able to do that.
Yeah, maybe they don't like it. Maybe they don't like what you're asking them to do. I've had that.
Yes, like you try to hire somebody that's not detail oriented to do a job that requires somebody to be detail oriented. There's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And I've done that. I've made every mistake there is, bro. Every one. So we're trying to minimize mistakes now. So, well, listen, Armando, thanks for the question. I just want to thank you guys all for being on Clubhouse. John, also, I want to thank you for being here. By the way, I dropped the link up at the top. If you click on it, just a couple of things we have going on. We do a webinar every Thursday. It's on Zoom. If you want to check it out, it's davidsfreewebinar.com. So just go to davidsfreewebinar.com. It's every Thursday at 12 o'clock. Also, the new app Clapper, where we're starting to do a lot more on Clapper. So you can go to clapperapp.com, David I. Hill, and check that out because Gary V's promoting it now, and a lot of big names are starting to promote it. Where Twitter may be going away, so you can get it. You might have an opportunity to jump into something that's going to go really big early. So David I. Hill on Clapper, and now let me toss it back to John. So John, what's the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you if they want to learn more, if they want to use your service?
Yeah, so I have social media accounts, but I'm not on social media. I don't like it. I make posts, but I don't make the posts. People in the Philippines do. So if you want to learn more, I have a couple things. OFSguide.com is a really great way to answer your questions and get started. Then onevaoa.com will walk you through how to find someone great. Onlinejobs.ph is the database where you're going to find people. If you have questions, you can email me, john@onlinejobs.ph, and I will respond to you. Someone else will probably see it, but if you say, hey, John, they all know. If you use the contact us link in any of those places, it doesn't come to me, but they all know if you're asking a question from me, they're going to forward it to me and I will respond directly to you. So
good stuff, man. Well, final thought question, like if there's, one thing you want everybody listening to take from today, what would be your biggest piece of advice to anybody thinking about hiring a virtual assistant?
Yeah, this doesn't work for everybody. I've seen hundreds of thousands of people do it successfully, but it doesn't work for everybody. If you have no tolerance for not being correct the first time, if you have no patience, this isn't going to work for you. But the only way you know if it works for you is if you try it. You just have to try it. And whether you use Fiverr or Upwork or onlinejobs.ph, whatever, just try it and see if it works. Because if it does, it's life-changing.
Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. You gave me some great tips today, and yeah, this was awesome. So
thank you.
Thank you for that.
I'm glad to contribute.
Awesome.